Okay, you know the rule. If final is used in the title, then it has to be the last one in the series. And so Final Soldier is the end of the Star Soldier franchise. There's definitely not another sequel on the PC Engine, or a spin-off game on the PC Engine, or additional games made on later platforms. No, Final Soldier has to be the final one. It's right there. Of course, the Star Soldier franchise has always been weirdly loose. The original Star Soldier was created as a sequel to Tecmo's Star Force, but Hudson didn't have the rights to the name. Then people argue about whether or not certain games count. Some people think that the series is just the Hudson shoot-'em-ups that say Soldier, and some people loop in all of the shoot-'em-ups that Hudson used in their summer caravans. I think I'd go with the former definition, but I've got to acknowledge that none of the games have anything to do with each other anyways. So if you wanted to use it for all of the shoot-'em-up competition games, I'm not going to put up a big fight. The caravans were summer tours that Hudson held, taking their games on the road and offering players a chance to compete in a national tournament of their latest titles. Final Soldier was the 7th caravan game. They used Power League in 1988 rather than one of their shooters. And Final Soldier released just a few weeks before the caravan started to let players have an opportunity to practice. One extra special thing about Final Soldier and the Summer Caravan is that, if you went, you could purchase Final Soldier Special Version. This was the competition cart version of Final Soldier, and Hudson made 20,000 copies of it to sell to players. These days, a low-end copy will run you around 30,000 yen, and it's probably one of the worst collectible buys you can get for the PC Engine, since the competition mode, that's the only thing on the special version, is right there on the main menu of the standard version. The plot of the game is that time travelers from the 25th century invaded the 23rd century. After destroying all the 23rd century military, the people from the future, but not the future's future, invented a new super attack craft called the Dryad. And even though this is the equivalent of sending a ship of the line from that period when oceans are now battlefields up against the entirety of the modern American military, things still work out pretty well for the Dryad. It just has to shoot through 7 stages first. Final Soldier proved to be a game that was a real challenge to get footage for. Not because the game was hard to obtain, or because it does something funny with the video, but because it has a very special weapon power-up system. When I'm playing shoot-'em-ups, I'm often intentionally playing poorly. And I'll just give you a couple seconds to write your comments down there. What I mean is, I need to get coverage of certain things. Every weapon needs to be showcased, even when it's a bad choice to use it. Final Soldier has essentially 13 different weapons, and 3 different missile configurations. There's 4 classes of weapons, and 3 of them have 3 mutually exclusive selections that you have to pick from before you start the game. So I had to play a full game with 1 set of weapon configurations, and then rather than pushing on and trying to get footage of the last stage, I reset, used another set of weapon configurations, and played through the game again. And then I did it 1 more time. It is possible to switch your weapon configuration after you get a game over, but I was getting a game over on stage 6 of 7, and so if I just changed weapons there, then everything would look the same. But I wound up with at least workable footage of every single weapon in the game. The way this works is that you can hit select on the main menu and go to setup, and here you're given an array of options. You have 3 choices for 3 weapon types: laser, energy, and flame, and then 3 very simple choices for the missiles. Everything defaults to the middle option, and honestly, that is probably the easiest setup to use. When you start the game, you're not using any of those 3 weapons. Instead, you begin with the Vulcan gun. The way that power-ups work in Final Soldier is that you'll see carrier crafts that you can destroy, and they'll drop a power-up. For weapons, that's the red V, the blue L, the green E, and the orange F. And of course those correspond to Vulcan, Laser, Energy, and Flame. Collect an icon of your current weapon, and you improve your firepower 1 step. You can do this twice. Collect an icon of a different weapon, and you'll switch to that, but you keep the same power level. Getting hit by an enemy bullet or running into one of them will reduce your power level 1 step, and if you're at the lowest power level, then it destroys you. When you're destroyed, any options that you had following your ship start falling to the back of the screen, and you get revived right where you were. You always go back to the Vulcan shot once that happens. Upgrading the Vulcan will increase the spread of your shots. The individual bullets don't do much damage, but you get a lot of them. So this makes a fine utility option. For the lasers, you could have a spear laser, which fires a beam straight ahead, and powering it up makes that beam bigger. It looks very impressive, but it's not very good because if it hits something, then it goes away. It's also very slow firing and does not do a lot of damage. The better option for lasers is the shot, which fires 3 beams straight ahead. This is on more of a rapid fire burst, so the fact that the laser doesn't penetrate anything doesn't make much of a difference here. Finally, there's the bubble shot, which fires an enormous spread of bubbles all over the screen, and as you level it up, the area in which you fire becomes larger. I feel like this one allows for too many gaps in your attack pattern, but out of all the laser weapons, it's probably the better choice. The energy shots, on the other hand, are surprisingly effective. They seem to do the most damage of any of the weapon groups. Usually this kind of thing is reserved for the rapid fire low damage stuff. The V-shot energy weapon always fires in a spread. As you level it up, you get shots behind you. The spread is enormous, but you have absolutely no shot in front of you, and this one leaves you really vulnerable. The wiper shot fires a line of bubbles straight in front of you, and as you level them up, the bubbles get bigger and you add a line behind you. When you move left and right, the angle that you're firing shifts slightly. It's not a huge difference, but it is enough to help in some tough spots. The spin shot fires a circular wave of bubbles in front of you, and leveling it up will increase the size of that shot and then add one behind you. The biggest problem with this weapon is the low rate of fire, but it is something that can clear a path for you. The fire weapons are theoretically the high damage but severely limited weapon group. It doesn't work like that though, because they are so limited that the other weapons outdamage them. The flare shot is a flamethrower, and as you level it up, it turns into a V shape and then becomes a sweeping attack. So as you power it up, you become less and less safe. The burner fires a stream of fire ahead of you. As it levels up, you'll get some smaller spread shots off of it. This is the most effective fire weapon, but the rate of fire is so low that you might as well use something else. Finally, there's the Sol weapon. This fires a small bullet forward that goes about halfway up the screen and then explodes. Powering it up makes the explosion very slightly bigger. And you might think, okay, a big explosion has to do a ton of damage. It hardly does anything to tough targets. You acquire missiles by collecting the M icon, and this one doesn't upgrade in steps. The 3 options for missile firing patterns are straight ahead, behind you, and homing. The non-homing options fire a lot faster, so that's the trade-off there. And then there are the options. They just look like little squares with nothing in them as they come down the screen. And once you collect one, it'll follow along behind your ship, occasionally shooting out a single Vulcan bullet. You can have a maximum of 2 options following you, and you might look at them and go, why? They're not providing any helpful damage, they're not screening you from enemy attacks. What's the point in even having them? And the answer to that is that they're not options, they're bombs. If you hit button 1, then you'll get an enormous explosion around your ship, and it does a pretty good job of dishing out damage and destroying any shots on screen. Since you can only have 2 of the options, and if you're collecting another one, you might as well launch another bomb. The bombs are really effective in Final Soldier, and since they're constantly giving you options, you can constantly use them. There are very few shoot-em-ups where I fire off as many screen-clearing blasts as I do in Final Soldier. There is no speed power-up in Final Soldier. This is one of those games where you hit select to rotate through a few settings. You can probably do okay leaving it at the default 1, but I found it worked better for me to increase the speed to 2. Level 3 is for the real shoot-em-up sickos. As I mentioned before, there is a caravan mode here where you have a time limit and your goal is to score as many points as possible before the clock runs out. You can play a 2 or 5 minute mode, and these modes have their own special stage that takes about 4.5 minutes to clear if you're doing things exactly right. The only weapon you get in the caravan mode is the Vulcan, but they do give you one option that occurs about 3 minutes into the stage. You'll see pods that release little spheres that are worth some extra points, and there's B targets on the ground that will also trigger bonuses. I've seen the Final Soldier Caravan mode called the best caravan mode by shoot-em-up fans because it offers a lot of tricks and strategy for racking up extra points that an expert can take advantage of, but also carry with them risk of running out the timer. Stay and farm extra points by destroying the things that the mini-boss spawns, or push through and get the extra points for time and lives. As you might expect, Final Soldier's got a really good reputation among PC Engine fans in Japan. It's one of those games that's so well liked that people wind up nitpicking it a bit. A lot of, it's great, but it could be better. And yeah, I think Final Soldier is pretty fantastic. It's not my favorite of Hudson's caravan shooters, but I also think it's a very approachable one if you're not a shoot-em-up fan. This is a relatively forgiving game to learn. The stages are even laid out to give you moments of respite in between big attacks. And with the huge variety of weapons, there's a lot of flexibility for the shoot-em-up expert. So even though Final Soldier is not my favorite, it's got something for anybody who wants to enjoy a shooter.